How do you build hyper-targeted prospect lists for your B2B company and your sales reps with Apollo.io? I'm going to show you that today. Hey, I'm Kevin Downey from Kevin M. Downey, where we help companies with their recruiting, sales, and marketing efforts. You can visit our website at kevinmdowney.com. Okay, today, I'm going to show you how to use Apollo.io. Whether you have an account, you don't have an account, you should. I'm going to put a link in the description to Apollo. If you don't have an account, get one. It is the best product for the money in the space in the world, period. End of discussion, right? I don't care what else you're using, what else you've seen. For the money, nothing beats Apollo, all right? It's got so many features, so much data, so powerful. You got to look at it. It's the best. All right. So how do you build people's searches? How do you build targeted prospect lists, right? This isn't like the old days when we would build lists of companies, right? In Sales Genie, or, we used List Giant, which is a great product. We didn't have all the people, right? And then obviously over time, it became harder and harder to get a hold of receptionists, find out who decision makers were. And we started looking at this new data from Zoom Info, which is the gold standard in the space, right? And then Apollo comes along and so many other companies, so many other providers, and they've got all these people tied to the companies, which now gives us a huge, huge advantage, right? Because we know who we want to get a hold of in most cases, right? So I'm going to show you the inner workings of people searches in Apollo really quickly, show you how we do it here at the company, the main sections that we use when building searches for our clients. We build prospect lists for clients that are going through recruiting programs with us or outsourcing or whatever. I'm going to show you how we build lists. Okay. So the starting point of building prospect lists, I'm going to use a sample client that's got some unique setup in here. But what are the main features that we're looking at? So you go to people in Apollo and understand you've got two facets of this that you're working in all these drop downs. You've got the titles of the people that you want, right? And then you've got the geography of the people and the companies. And then you've got the things that define the companies that come up, right? So you've got the company and the people within those companies all in one search, right? So how do you do it? How do you make it work? Okay. So the first thing you have to understand is building the part that is defining the companies. You're usually going to use a combination of industry and keywords. We typically, as a company, will use keywords for us, but for a lot of our clients, it's industry focused. And in some cases, we don't use it at all because we don't need to, because we use other criteria. But industry and keywords is going to be really important. There's a ton of different industries that are pre-built into Apollo. You can also use the keywords. You can also use a combination of both. So in this case, client is looking for industries such as retail, hospitality, wholesale, import and export, restaurants, consumer goods, and supermarkets. And then we're cross-referencing that to also say they've got to have one of these keywords tied into their company via their, and I'll show you how this works. It's in their SEO, their company listings, stuff like that. The keywords are in their name. They're keywords that are tied into their social media presence out there or their company description from an SEO standpoint. And we want to tie in keywords like kitchenware, houseware, and all of these right here. So that gives us companies in these industries that also have these keywords, one of these keywords. So that defines the companies that we're looking for, right? In this case, we don't look at employee count, but there's another one that you can use. You can target companies based on employee count. You can also look at annual revenue, for example, right? This also doesn't apply to this client, but you can do annual revenue, okay? Another thing that we will use that's in an additional filter for companies, very important sometimes, is employees by department. So we use this a lot for our targeting. So we're looking for companies that have salespeople, right? So employees by department, in this client's case, it doesn't apply. But we can scroll all the way down in the type of department. So we're going to say sales just because I'm really familiar with that. So we're not just talking, it can be any sales for our purposes, right? So you click sales and you say, okay, or a specific type of role in sales. And I say, I want this many people to this many people as a sales department to then define the company. Okay. So all of these things are the things you can do with this, right? So those are the different ways you're going to define company. The most common, there's a whole different bunch of things you can look at in here, whether or not they're funded, whether or not they've had job postings of certain types, signals, which I think is overrated, but that's neither here nor there. All kinds of different things that you can do to define the companies, right? And then when you get done with that and geography, now we're going to look at titles. Titles are the people, right? We use that more than we use persona or company lookalikes, right? So we look at titles. So when we look at owners, we say owner, founder, co-founder, CEO, chief executive officer, partner, or president, excluding all VPs, because president would also, as a keyword for a title, include everyone that is a vice president, because it includes the word president, right? So we exclude that. So we only get owners, right? The highest level person in the company, okay? So that gives you a quick introduction into the overview of how to do this. Now, let's say we want to then add, and we usually separate these out, we're going to look at the employee titles that this client wants to target, right? So outside of the owners, and we build this as a separate list because we're going to need VPs of certain things. So since the owner list excludes vice presidents, we have to then create a separate list when we're dealing with the employee list. And sometimes you can do it all in one list depending on who you're targeting, but generally speaking for our clients, we separate the two out and then we combine them into one cohesive list when we're talking about putting it in our CRM or, in a call list or whatever, right, as a CSV file. So what are the titles that this company might target besides owners, right? So we want to target buyer, procurement, sourcing, purchasing, purchaser, supply chain, merchandising, category manager, category management. So these are the employee titles. But otherwise, the keywords and everything we're using to identify the companies is exactly the same. We're hitting companies of all sizes, right? So they're targeting retailers and similar things that would sell effectively cookware, okay? So they want to target the owners of those stores, right? Especially in the smaller ones. And then the employees at all of those companies, which you can tell in this case is a bigger list, all right? But everything else is pretty much the same, right? Email status, they don't have to have one because they want the name and the phone number. They have email, that's great. Most of the time the email's there, but for their purposes, because it's a rep-based manualized outreach, if it doesn't have email, they still got to know who the person is, right? Because they want to reach out to them. Okay. So that's how you build targeted prospect lists in Apollo. We could go through all kinds of examples in this. If you need any help, you have any questions, we do it all the time for clients as part of our recruiting services. Reach out to us, kevinmdowney.com. Thanks for being here today. Best of luck in business, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.